Welcome, nutritionradio.org listeners. This is Lonnie Lowry, a university nutrition professor of over 20 years and podcast host of long-running shows like Iron Radio. Come on in. Lecture time.
Hey, everybody. Well, today we've got a treat for you. I'm going to resurrect something from April of 2001. This is not a typical lecture. This is a exploration of how science and experiential bodybuilding or powerlifting come together. Rob Fortney and I. Rob was an editor at Muscle Mag International. We've worked on all kinds of projects together. Rob is no longer creating a lot of media through writing or podcasting, but I wanted to go back and share something from really pre-podcasting days. We actually called it internet radio. Again, we're talking about something we did in 2001. I have students that weren't born until then, but I know a lot of our hardcore Iron Radio listeners, they love Fortress. Fortress is a brother to me. It's just going to be fun to explore this. Keep in mind that this audio quality is poor, and it was dealing with the science of the day, which is now over 20 years old. But the great part about this is the experiential part. Not only were Rob and I competitive bodybuilders and powerlifters at the time, but it's just that kind of in the trenches view. So please keep that in mind. If you like this kind of thing, I'll resurrect some of the other ones. You can find this stuff at nutritionradio.org. It's the old site. It's under the experiments versus experience part of the archives there. Anyway, let's go see what we had to say.
This month on Experiments versus Experience, we're going to be talking a little bit about growth hormone and whether or not it benefits the physique athlete. I think we'll let Dr. Lowry start things off.
You may think that this question is a no-brainer. I mean, does growth hormone help the physique athlete? Especially if you've been reading that almost endless hype on the internet and in magazines, since the 80s. But not so fast. Although scientists like Dr. Kevin Yarashevsky, for example, have been documenting the body composition, and the protein retention effects associated with HGH, or human growth hormone administration. First, the positive nitrogen balance associated with its use appears to be in the form of additional organ mass, not muscle mass per se, at least when it's used alone. And that leads me to a second point, I suppose, that GH appears more effective, or effective period, for muscle mass accretion, or muscle mass gains, only when used with other hormones, like testosterone, or insulin, or IGF. Now, Rob, I'm sure you can share something with that from the experience.
Well, it just seems that in the last, basically, 20 years, GH use among competitive bodybuilders, both top national and professional, it's become as common to use GH with the different array of drugs that they're using as testosterone or any others. So, yeah, I think the high amounts of testosterone has been basically arrived at by bodybuilders as to be what is needed to fully benefit from GH use.
I think, just to put this in a summarized form, kind of in a nutshell, the data is going to be lagging. I mean, let's face it, when you're talking about these kinds of combinations of hormones. I'd love to get a handful of elite competitive bodybuilders, like in an MRI unit, a magnetic resonance imaging unit, to see what's going on inside them, looking at not just their minimal body fat. And I know from the experiment side of things, you can probably vouch that many of the guys using growth hormone are incredibly lean despite sloppy dietary practices. But I'd like to see deep-lying visceral fat or organ mass or some of these other things that are causing some of the protruding bellies, if you will.
Well, I've actually heard that a lot of bodybuilders actually have to eat a lot of junk because they say if they eat clean, no matter how much they eat, they just can't get the amount of calories necessary because they'll just waste away. I've heard, without naming names, of a certain bodybuilder who says that up to like 1 or 2 weeks out from a contest, he actually eats whole chocolate cakes and so forth just to get the amount of calories he needs, and he still arrives on stage shredded.
I remember, particularly from my own personal experience, seeing a guest poser wolfing down a dozen powdered donuts, and he made short work of them. And I thought, oh, he's not going to be in shape for the guest posing. And he gets on stage, puts his hand behind his head, and out pops his intercostals. And that was my first experience with that. But I know I'm supposed to be talking from the experiment's point of view. Back to what I was saying a little bit before, this issue may never be adequately resolved unless progressive researchers that have access to proper medical equipment and medical staff decide that it's of interest regarding some pathology, like a wasting disorder, like AIDS wasting or cancer, cachexia, conditions in which serious anabolism or anti-catabolism, muscle building, is called for. No human subjects review board at a university or a hospital is currently going to allow the administration of these combinations. Certainly not the combinations, perhaps not even the single hormones, and maybe even not having, allowing single athletes to self-administer this and just monitor them for research on, the aesthetics of it, for the aesthetic purposes. There's always a risk-to-benefit ratio, and any review board that's going to allow this kind of research, whether it's just documenting an athlete doing it himself or actually administering the hormones, it's going to have to be for a medical purpose, to try to do some good.
Personally, I don't really know whether or not this is I think a lot of the weight that has been seen in the weight gains of the bodybuilders that has been seen in the last decade or so, I think a lot of it can be attributed to, certainly, yes, like lots and lots of testosterone and other drugs, but I think also mountainous amounts of GH. I think it's not uncommon for a lot of people who are in the industry and tight with a lot of the goings-on that some of these guys are using 8, 10, 12 or more IUs a day of this stuff. Oftentimes I've talked with some people I know whether or not that when you hear guys who are off-season 300, 320 pounds, whether maybe is that really added muscle from how it was 10, 12 years ago, or is it maybe just more organ growth? I know I've talked a lot about that with Lonnie. But having said that, the guys are in a lot more shredded condition, and they seem to be carrying a lot more muscle, yes, but I don't know if it's really the benefits can override the fact that a lot of the bellies and so forth are just becoming monstrously huge and so forth.
What do you think about the shape of the physiques then? I mean, is it, the quest for muscle mass, do you think is it mutating the sport? I mean, from your experience?
Well, I certainly think that what they called the quote-unquote classic physique of a Steve Reeves or even Bob Paris or a more modern like Lee Labrada type ideal, I think that's becoming less and less seen on the world stage, again, because of the protrusion of the guts and so forth. It's gotten to the point where if you could actually see these guys posing, doing their back shots and their rear shots from the curtain side of the stage, that people would be really shocked to see just how large and distended these guys' guts are.
I guess refocusing just a bit on the growth hormone itself issue. Growth hormone is, of course, potently lipolytic or fat burning, which is why you're talking about the guys getting so shredded. Now, all of growth hormone's effects are not mediated apparently through IGF-1. A lot of people talk about insulin-like growth factor, which primarily the liver, but presumably other tissues also produce in response to growth hormone. That may be the reason for, or a main reason for some of the anabolic effects, but the lipolytic or fat-burning effects of growth hormone appear to be due to the hormone itself, at least largely. But again, I wish I had more to say from the experiments side of the fence here. Now, don't get me wrong, there are individuals like the aforementioned, Dr. Yarashevsky. There's others like Dr. Thomas Ziegler, who's done work with several different anabolic hormones in clinical settings. And then there's activists, like the Michael Mooney, who, of course, is an AIDS activist and trying to fight the steroid, paranoid dogma that pervades the medical community. But by and large, I think it's a human guinea pig kind of scenario when it comes to GH and these other hormones, and it's really the realm of the athlete. I mean, what else can I say?
I think the benefits obviously are obvious to anybody who looks and sees the physiques of today. But at the same time, from a purist level myself, and I know that Lonnie will agree with me, a lot of the work ethic seems to be hampered because of the more better and vaster amount of drugs that these guys are using. I've heard stories of guys hardly even doing any pre-contest cardio whatsoever because of just the amount of drugs that they use and the different types, GH among them, thyroid medications and so forth. There's one very well-known professional who, not competing at the moment, who I heard does no cardio and never has because of the amount and what he uses. So he lets the drugs dictate his condition, and it's always spot on.
Some of the listeners might think that, from the experiment side of the coin here, that the doses that have been administered by guys like Kevin Yarashevsky are really minimal compared to what athletes have used. And actually, that's not really the case in this situation. Oftentimes, of course, it is. We are talking about much lower doses used in a clinical setting than an athlete would self-prescribe. But some of the research showing increased organ mass with growth hormone administration, they were using several IUs a day. It was quite a bit. It was quite a dose. And Dr. Yarashevsky has also commented, I believe it was last year when I was in Canada at a conference speaking with him and Dr. Ziegenfuss, that just anecdotally, well, of course it's in the medical record, but he's seen subjects who used testosterone and GH concomitantly, and the combination was enough to visibly change their physique and make them considerably more muscular, and when one or the other hormone was removed, they lost that. So there seems to be a synergy, but again, there's not much I can really say. Do you have any closing comments?
Not particularly. I think it just goes along with GH. Just is just another. It seems to me. Testosterone has actually becoming just a basic drug that's a given, and all these other things are fast becoming the same thing, just different parts of the same wheel to get on stage and arrive in the kind of shape that's necessary to both impress judges and win the contest. And I think a lot of guys are seeing that, and if they're willing enough to take a risk and do these things, because again, there's not a lot's known about what can happen with this stomach distension and so forth, they're going to do it.
I guess I concede the point. Maybe this was preordained, but I think this month it's going to be thumbs up to experience. Science simply has yet to adequately document, if it ever will, for ethical reasons, what many competitive athletes have been putting into practice for, over 15 years anyway. So for experiment or experience this month, this is Dr. Lonnie Lowry
and Robert Fortress Fortney.
We'll see you next time.
Oh man, that was a trip down memory lane. Again, I know a lot of people miss Rob from the early days of Iron Radio. I thought if I didn't bring this up every once in a while, some of these old experiments versus experience shows, then they would be lost. Now, over 20 years later, I think I might check in with some people. I know that Dr. Guillermo Escalante is giving a talk about different anabolic hormones at the ISSN meeting that is going on. Actually, as I'm recording this right now, this is pre-recorded, so as you're hearing this right now. In any case, if you want more experiments versus experience, there are a number of episodes that I can resurrect. Let me know, and we'll see you next time.
The NutritionRadio.org podcast is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet or exercise program, check with your physician, nutritionist, or qualified exercise physiologist in order to make the progress that you need.